So do you think this is the trend now, having these younger guys? There's no longer a 3 and 4 waiting period for quarterbacks. It's like, now it's, hey, if you can play first day we draft you, you're going to be the guy. Is that the trend now with the NFL?
Well, D, it's if you find the right guy, you're going to be my guy.
Exactly.
I think Houston's got to make a decision on what they want to do. They got Keenan down there as far as their quarterback goes. Cleveland's got to make a decision on what they want to do with their quarterback situation. Jacksonville has a decision to make. But do you really see the quarterbacks in this draft? I personally don't. That are going to be a number one pick that's going to come in like an Andrew Luck, like a Russell Wilson III, like an RG3, and play to that level. So it depends on the class coming out, whether you say, I'm going to hitch my horses to this guy. This is the wagon that I'm running with, and then we're going to go with that guy.
So you're not sold on Bridgewater or Manziel?
I think Bridgewater's probably the most complete of the bunch. He would be one that I would consider, but only one versus 2 or 3 or 4. Johnny Manziel could be. He could be. He throws the ball well, but he was so much a runaround quarterback in college, I don't know if I would trust my franchise to somebody that I don't know that much about. So I think the combine's going to be real important.
So do you think it'll be a reach? Do you think GMs are reaching nowadays to try to take a quarterback? Because as you said, this year's crop is not like last year's crop.
Right.
But some teams are forced to take a quarterback. For instance, Houston, they are kind of in a dilemma right now.
Yeah.
Should they take a quarterback number one or
I don't
not?
think so. I don't think Houston takes a quarterback. I think Case Keenum down there, he showed me enough this year that he can play. I thought Mike Lennon at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers showed me enough that he can play. I think it's because now they have that year of experience. You know what it's like the first year in the league. I mean, you're trying to figure out how to get from your hotel or from your house to the practice field back. I mean, there's so much to learn about becoming a professional football player or a professional individual. And that's the first year you try to. I don't know if that'd be the right move for Houston, to be honest with you. I think they have some other needs, too.
Joe Theisman, enough about the puppy dogs. Let's talk about the old savvy vets, Peyton Manning. More specifically, what he's set to do, possibly winning a Super Bowl with two different teams. That's never been done. I know a quarterback with such an accomplishment as yourself can appreciate just what he's probably going to be able to do.
Hop, let me tell you, I look at Peyton Manning this way. I look at Peyton Manning as one of the great artists, the Van Goghs, the Rembrandts, the Picassos. Because every time he steps into his studio, which is a stadium, we see another painting of greatness. I mean, 55 touchdown. We see just like, are you kidding me? I didn't think they'd get to 50. Of course, I never thought they'd get to $100 million players either. I'm sure you guys were a lot closer to it than I did. You're much more disappointed than I am at those numbers than I was. Most I made was $1 million. But I look at his accomplishments, and I'm awed by what he has been able to do, particularly at his age. But then I sort of analyze it a little more, and I say this is the best complement of weapons he's ever had around him. And he's in charge of this offense. And I think he got rejuvenated and re-energized when he changed teams and had to learn all over again. You get stale. We know it.
Yeah.
You play a long time for somebody, it's like, okay, I hear you, but I don't hear you.
Well, stay with that thought right there. Do you think that maybe the adversity of trying to come back from the injury and bunking all the things that people say about the lack of RPMs on the ball and his ability to kind of come back, do you think that challenge right there might have given him that resurgence that you're talking about?
Absolutely. Is there any of us that if somebody told you that you couldn't do something, are you just going to go, yeah, you're right? No. You're going to go, part of you, there's a pride. I call it fine line. Is it pride or is it spite? When I came out of high school, I was 5'10", 152 pounds. There was a headline in a Newark newspaper. I grew up in New Jersey, just where the Super Bowl is being played, oh, by the way, over in New Jersey. There was a headline that said, Theisman will get killed at Notre Dame.
Wow.
And you know what? They were it was a pretty good analogy. I mean, I'm 5'10", 152 pounds. I'm not going to, knock people over. I was one of 13 quarterbacks that went to the University of Notre Dame at that time, all that same year. And I looked at that and I thought, I'm not going to let somebody tell me that I can't do something. And this is something I like to share with young kids and even guys that I mentor in the league. Don't let somebody tell you that you can't do something. How many times have you tried to, how many things have you had to overaccomplish? How many things? Well, Derek, you're really not fast enough. Hop, you're really not big enough. What does that do to you? If you're any kind of a competitor at all, you say, watch me. I think that's the same thing happened.
That's 93 octane for me right there.
Yeah, that's
Fuel
it.
in the tank.
Just throw it in there.
Joe, when you were there in Washington, when I think of your days, Joe Gibbs, I think of a franchise that was rock solid, stability, did a lot of winning. What's happened? Why do they seem like they're a grease fire the last decade?
I think inconsistency in leadership in two areas. And it's not Daniel Snyder, because certainly the biggest fan of the Redskins is Daniel Snyder. Any owner is going to be the biggest fan of their football team. You've had 31 quarterbacks, I believe, start since I got hurt 28 years ago. That's inconsistency.
Wow.
You've had 7 full-time head coaches in 15 years, of which 2 of them coached 4 of those years each, Joe Gibbs and Mike Shanahan. So there's no consistency in the programs. You're constantly learning a new offense. You're constantly learning a new routine. You're constantly changing. And how are you going to go up against somebody that's had somebody there for 5 or 6 or 7 years? Is Tennessee much different than that? When Mike tried to create an environment, but this game's all about one position and one position only.
Well, let's talk a little bit about youth football. You're big in youth football, and what do you think is the state of youth football, considering what's been going on with the concussions and moms now really paying attention to it?
Moms and dads. I think that we're in a place where we have to turn the corner and start bringing kids back to Pop Warner football, for example. Met this week with Pop Warner Football, and there's a company that I'm associated with called Unequal. If you go to our website, it's unequal.com. And Pop Warner Football and Unequal are looking forward to partnering and advancing protection when it comes to Pop Warner Football. We want to create an opportunity where the environment is safer. We make it's a Kevlar inset that goes in the helmets. Just so you know, the National Federation of High Schools has approved the gyro that we put in the helmets for use at the high school level. June Jones is a big proponent of it down in SMU. Ryan Clark with the Pittsburgh Steelers. James Harrison, both wear it. Austin Collie wore it last week in the AFC Championship game. There are about 100 guys in the NFL that wear it in their helmets. It's changed what they're able to do. Kurt Warner, this is probably the best example for a parent. Kurt and I were on different sides of kids participating in youth football. Kurt was against it because he had young kids that played. And then he went out and sought technology to try and make the game safer. He found Unequal. Unequal didn't find Kurt. He found Unequal. Now his kids are playing football because of the technology that's used. And that's why I'm asking parents to take the time to log on to the website and take a look at the technology and take a look at the advances that are being made. Like I said, it's a Kevlar inset. It's very thin, and we had 3-4 high schools down in Texas that basically bought the product, have used it, and they've noticed a decrease in the head concussions that have occurred during the course of a season from one to another.
Just kind of wrapping things up a little bit, talking more specifically about this game. Since you've left the game, Joe Theisman, your job has been to cover it. I'm just going to ask you this. I'm going to ask this of a lot of our guests today. Did the right 2 teams make it to New York?
Yes. It was either going to be San Francisco or Seattle. Which one turned the ball over the most? It was either going to be, I thought New England went as far as they could possibly go and even a little bit further, but it was Denver all the way. I mean, if Denver wasn't here, the Peyton Manning experiment would be a disaster. Even based on it wasn't his fault last year, it would still have been a disaster. I don't think we can give enough accolades to John Elway, nor Peyton Manning's surgeon.
Yeah.
There's a guy, you talk about a guy in the shadows that nobody talks about. What about his surgeon? Putting him on the field again, giving him a chance to play. So, yeah, I think that these 2 teams are the ones that we expected. Number 1 defense, number 1 offense. Met 5 times in Super Bowls. Defense has won 4 of them. That's why I'm picking Seattle.
Uh-oh.
All right, last thing I want to wrap up with, you were starting to touch on Tennessee. You were starting to touch on the quarterback is the most important position. A lot of question marks in Nashville.
Yeah, it is.
Whether Jake Locker's the guy. They just got rid of Mike Munchak. They just hired Ken Wisenhunt. Chris Johnson's future's up in the air with the Titans. A lot of people think he will not be back. What would you do? What do you see when you see the Titans?
I like Ken Wisenhunt as a football coach. I think Ken's stint as a head coach gave him an opportunity to see the things that he needs, see the type of a football team he wants to build and put together, and the things that win football games for him. The second time around, you get a much more savvy individual, some that's got his program polished, and can do the things that he needs to do. It's up to Jake, to be honest with you. You know, how Jake Locker does is up to Jake Locker. It's not up to Ken. It's not up to anybody. What do you do? How do you perform? What's your study habits? You know, Jake I always felt was a little bit of a loose guy. Got a little loose cannon, maybe more disciplined. Matthew Stafford, very talented, very undisciplined. Robert Griffin III in Washington, this particular year, very undisciplined in his techniques. Fundamentally, you have to build your program and individuals the right way. As a quarterback, I need to be fundamentally sound in my legs. Any athlete will tell you, it's not my arm. Peyton Manning doesn't throw the ball like Tom Brady. But yet you look at his completion percentage and you look what he's accomplished, it's better.
We look at Ken Wisenhunt and what he did with Phillip Rivers, a veteran.
Absolutely.
But does he – I mean, you got a pretty much a canvas here in Jake Locker that he can work and develop. Is that going to be an uphill battle for him working with such a young guy?
I don't think it's an uphill battle because Jake's been in the league long enough not to be considered, in my opinion, a young guy anymore.
Okay.
He knows this league. He knows the people in the division. He knows what's expected of him.
Right.
Jerry Jones basically said when he signed Tony Romo to the $100+ million contract, I want Tony around the stadium more. It's not like Tony wasn't there, but that's an owner justifying the dollars that he's trying to pay somebody. Tony's put the time in to get ready. I mean, when we were students in school, I knew friends of mine that didn't study half as long as I did, and they were twice as smart. I pissed off. I hated them. I hated them for crying out loud. I'm putting all this time in, and we're getting the same grades, and you're outgone in less than time. So I think it's really up to Jake. Every guy that puts on a uniform, and I say this, I hope there are guys listening. Mark Mariani's a good friend of mine, and Mark has bounced back from his injury, and I'm proud of what he's done. And he's a kid that wants it bad. How badly? This is the question I ask every young guy that's putting on that uniform. How badly do you want to play? Because I'm telling you something, the dream only lasts for a very, very short period of time. Some of us that have been blessed to get into double digits and play this game, it's a blessing, and it's lucky. But you don't know when they punch that ticket. You don't know when that game's over for you. So, man, what are you waiting for? And I think one of the biggest mistakes that the collective bargaining agreement did for the players was not allow the players to be around the facilities till the 1st of April.
Wow.
Vince Young could have listened to some of this when he was in Nashville.
Let me tell you something. Two guys I predicted coming out of college, Vince Young and Jamarcus Russell, were destined to fail.
Wow.
Destined to fail. Vince couldn't throw the football. He was a great athlete, tremendous legs. He was calling Kaepernick. And when he had between Chris Johnson and Vince Young, you didn't know who was going to run 80 yards, which one of them. So you didn't know how to defend him. He never learned how to throw the football effectively from the pocket. That's what hurt Vince Young. And that's what I saw in college, and that's what I saw his first year as a pro. Jamarcus Russell never applied himself. Then all of a sudden it was all done and gone. It was over with. Now you want to apply yourself. Sorry, buddy. This train's leaving, and there is no jumping on after it's left the station.
Wow. Hey, thanks for doing this. This was a treat.
My pleasure,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Always great to be with you. Thanks,
Joe
guys.
Theisman. We'll take a break, and we'll be back.